This is War Room Moments, the show that takes you around the world to share interviews with some of the most successful and most relevant people on the planet, hear their stories, and get the most important business lessons they have learned on their road to success, and get exclusive advice on how to implement their success into your life and business. War Room Moments is brought to you by the Strategic Advisor Board. Here's your host, Jason Miller.
All right, welcome to the alternate war room today, everybody. We're not in the typical war room today. We had some issues with sound, so we moved to the alternate war room today. And I'm excited to have Terry on today. Welcome to the show, my friend.
It's a pleasure to join you. I've heard a lot about your show, and I'm anxious to let's get into it.
Yeah, we're going to dive into it, man, for sure. Well, hey, Terry, I always tell people I do a horrible job of introducing people. So if you could just give the audience, a 30-second about who you are and what your superpower is.
Very good. I'm happy to do that. I am Terry Lyons, and I co-founded a company named Pivottv Media, with the OTT standing out on that for over the top. Together with my business partner, Ken Adelson, we've been really mostly consulting with companies to help them better their broadcasts and also save some money. Before that, I was working on my own, Terry Lyons Sports Marketing, which I still take on a few clients and usually events. And then prior to that, what I'm mostly known for in the world of sports is spending 25 plus years at the NBA league office, where I started right out of college and worked until the 2008 Summer Olympics, when the team went off to Beijing. And I worked first as an intern and then as director of media relations, and then overseeing most of what we did outside the United States as the head of international communications, where we had started up many regional offices around the world. And I also worked hand in hand with the USA Basketball, where we started with the 92 Dream Team. But superpower, I would say that my best gift is to connect people and to help entrepreneurs and startups navigate the world of sports, no matter what sport it is. And also, obviously, with broadcasting as well, to help save some money and to do it right. Also, to not cut corners where sometimes people come in and really try to save too much money, and then their brand is sort of labeled as that's second rate. So if I can wave a superpower, it's to help people navigate sports and do a great broadcast.
Nice. Very cool. Well, it's interesting because being in the sports world, I don't know if you know who Lee Steinberg is or not. I would imagine.
Sure, I do.
So,
yes.
I sit on his board, and it's interesting. Sometimes who you connect with, you don't even know who you're connecting with, right? So it's funny how, and I own the magazine called Pivot. I'm the president of Pivot Magazine. So is that not
fit in?
Is that just not like some irony going on there?
I'll have to send you our logo, and you can slip it in there somewhere.
Yeah, there you
go. I'm not sure we're in a position right now to do any great advertising campaign, but maybe someday.
Sure. Yeah. Well, interesting background, no doubt. And I'm curious, did you come from a family of entrepreneurs? Did you grow up in that world?
I can't say I did. It was my father worked for Pan American World Airways, and that was I guess when he started, it was a startup, believe it or not, coming right out of World War II. But for the most part, my mom worked for Citibank and had the 9-to-5 kind of job.
Sure.
The interesting thing on the entrepreneur side was, upon joining the NBA in 1980-81 season, there wasn't a lot in place, and we had a very entrepreneurial spirit throughout the NBA, and that included, starting up NBA properties as a business. I personally started up NBA photos, we did Inside Stuff. It was the first ever league produced television show on NBC as a part of our package when we switched to NBC Sports, and so on and so on. The WNBA was I didn't know it at the time. I never stopped and thought about it, but USA Basketball with the Dream Team was sort of a restart of the whole national team program, and so on and so on. So my boss David Stern had a very entrepreneurial outlook, and would look around, why don't we have this, why don't we have this, well, let's do this, and of course the budget was zero, and somehow or another we got it done.
Yeah, wow, that's a lot going on in a real small amount of time. I'd imagine, like, going through that whole kind of phase in your life, man, you must have learned some pretty amazing, not just amazing stories, met amazing people, and had some really amazing lessons that you learned within
all of the above. Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. At the time we were doing it, I think we were just getting it done, getting through the day, trying not to make any mistakes, something like the NBA's first draft lottery, nobody had ever done it before. No sport had ever done it before. And there we were in the Waldorf Astoria spinning ball, logos around in a big old drum. And none of us knew what the hell was going to happen. And you just tried not to screw it up and learn by your mistakes. And, we had very good post-event meetings where it was like, okay, what are we going to do better next time? And one thing would always lead to another. It was a great atmosphere. And, along the lines, like one piece of advice, which we certainly experienced, is nobody ever pointed a finger at the other guy. It was all of us together. Whatever decision was made, even if you opposed you were allowed to oppose decisions and in the working meetings, but once a decision came down, everybody got behind it. And I think that was the power of that era of the NBA, which was an amazing period of time. Really from 1984, when David Stern became commissioner onward. And then sort of another benchmark was about 1987, 88, where we held the first international tournament, first here in the States, but then secondly, taking the Boston Celtics to Madrid. And that was an incredible journey. So, again, on the job training, which we all enjoyed.
Yeah. It's interesting that, you hear all this stuff nowadays about, leadership is lacking. It's been lacking for years. And it's interesting that, okay, well, we just did a flashback to kind of prove that wrong, right? It's like,
the NBA at that period of time there was one leader, let me tell you that, and his name was David Stern, and everybody else fell in. There were two titles, commissioner and worker,
But at least you were given the opportunity to say your piece, right? I mean,
oh yeah, and if you didn't, you were out the door. That was the other thing. It was speak now, and there was a collaborative effort, and what do they call it? Matrix management, where you knew a decision you made was going to affect someone else, and God forbid it actually affected the game itself. We were very careful with that, and everything sort of revolved around that game of basketball.
Right. Yeah, it's funny because, like, my neighbor Don, he worked over in Oracle for years, and he's been retired for 25, 30 years already, but it's funny because he's got this little plaque on his desk and it says, "You're entitled to your wrong opinion." Right? But it's funny.
I can't think of the name. Larry something, right? Headed up Oracle, if I remember.
Larry Ellison, yeah. So
yeah, there you go. Yeah, I knew someone who worked for him.
Yeah. And yeah, so amazing. And how did all that kind of lead you where you are today? Was that all pinnacle to kind of bringing you where you are today?
It was a constant treadmill, and largely led by our events, which dotted the calendar. And I'd say it all while that was going on, it was an incredible entrepreneurial spirit. And there was also a lot of, I started, there were about 30 people in the office, not a computer in sight, broken ribbons on the typewriters. It was archaic, even for a kid coming out of college. I was like, whoa, what's going on? And I brought my own typewriter in. And the technology was changing so drastically and so quickly that led to a huge advantage for the sport of basketball. And obviously the NBA, at the pinnacle of basketball worldwide, we were able to really take advantage of every single thing that came along. And at first, it was David Stern's knowledge and gut navigation of the world of cable TV. Now I know my kids grow up, they don't know cable from regular or anything. They don't care. It's just on the TV, or, you tape it most of the time. You don't have to watch commercials unless it's live sports. So, and it grew from there. Obviously, satellite delivery changed everything. We used to have to give people tapes and fly them across the ocean to get the games on. And of course, that changed in an instant. And as we went along, the players adapted to that too and took advantage of it. And there was nothing stronger than the group of NBA players, because they were always game to do whatever we were asking them to do. And, sometimes it was hey, do this and trust me. And other times the players would push back a little bit, but always took time to explain it to them, what was going on. There was a reason that we had to go fly to Japan and play regular season games. And the players were always intrigued by it too. To a man, everybody. Sometimes the teams were tougher to convince than the players, but that spirit really resonated throughout the whole time. And then the key to it all was really the amount of talent that came into the league nonstop. People put the big names at the top with Magic and Larry, and then Michael Jordan, and so on and so forth. But along came Yao Ming out of China. Tell you what, in 1984, I wouldn't have guessed we'd have a 7'5" #1 draft pick.
Yeah.
And of course, that lit the fuse for all of our efforts in China that had started in the late 70s, believe it or not. And it took such a long time. We had a couple players that were pretty good, but nobody to the extent of a Yao Ming. And that happened regularly. Next thing you know, we had Dirk Nowitzki. If you look at the NBA MVP list, Hakeem Olajuwon, last year's the Joker out of Denver, and the players just came from it. Tony Parker out of France, 3-time champion. Manu Ginobili on San Antonio from Argentina, 3-time, 5-time champion, I think it is. Tim Duncan, that led that team, was from the U.S. Virgin Islands.
Yeah.
So,
right.
it was just a regular flow of talent. And even though a lot of people thought we were in it to sell some T-shirts and hats, the truth of the matter was it was player development. And an effort that we did that was a startup in 2001 was Basketball Without Borders. Took the former Yugoslavian provinces, brought them all to Treviso, Italy, and had the kids choose up sides while their parents were standing there in horror that, a Croatian kid would be playing with a Serbian kid. And, oh, guess what? They're going to dorm, we're choosing up rooms too. And the kids didn't care, they just wanted to play basketball. And it was a great spirit all that time with virtually everything we did.
Yeah, man. I mean, what a business education to go through. Holy crap. Right. I mean, to be able to get that kind of business education, right, man, that's some service. That's like future service that you could never ask for something better. I mean, it just had to have been amazing to go through all that.
It's absolutely true. And I spoke last week at Columbia University, and the kids were in a sports management program asking a lot of questions about business and all. And I joked that I had my PhD from Stern University, and they were delving into questions that, if I were in high school or college, I never would have dreamt of, real deep questions about what the NBA's road to China went like, or what happened behind the scenes at USA Basketball to be able to get the dream team together. A lot of half the class was about crisis management too. And so, we had our taste of that. And the one that right through the class, I can just reiterate what was said at the class, that the number one that they thought and they asked us to delve into was Irvin Magic Johnson stepping up to a podium and 1991 and announcing that he had the HIV virus and would have to retire from the NBA.
Yeah.
That was at a time that none of us knew what that meant. I think every single person that heard it that day thought that Irvin would be passing away quickly. And here he is today, talking about an entrepreneur. That guy, he's into everything and has set a role for not just for HIV, but for, Black entrepreneurs, for NBA players that can get into anything, you name it. We all fall in line behind Irvin, and he set an incredible example. And what I love about him is he's stayed the same. He's still the same guy, even though he's, a billionaire over. He's the same guy, and he's just as competitive as he was, and he loves to talk about the games and have some fun as he goes on and starts buying franchises now. And the last one being the Washington Commanders are now under his umbrella of business activities, as are the LA Dodgers. So
right.
Yeah, there was just all that kind of stuff going on. And I would say Irvin's announcement, we had other crises, which were sort of run of the mill. Of course, you're going to have crisis with young players making mistakes, but that was worldwide. And instead of it just being on the sports page, it was on the front page of every paper and the lead to every newscast in the world because he was so famous. And then, of course, we brought him to Barcelona for the Dream Team, and he was the leader. He and Larry Bird were the captains and very much leading the team. And that was just great to see because it proved you could play, yeah.
Well, hey, I'm curious, like, through all those things in your life and business and all those things, I mean, if you didn't catch some lessons through that, you just weren't paying attention. So, but for our hard-headed audience, if you could give a couple of, what would be your go-to pieces of advice for a young entrepreneur to follow?
I say this at every class that I speak at, no matter if it's high school level or college, that your reputation and then your relationships are the key to anything, I believe. To entrepreneurs, to current businessmen, if the person across the table can't trust you and you haven't been recommended by one of your networking friends, you probably wouldn't be sitting at the table anyway. But, that carries just a lot of weight. And then, involved in that is to help people out, to help others navigate and be able to, if someone asks you a question, they want some help in a specific area. I think that sometimes the best answer is, well, I don't have that expertise, but I know somebody that can help you.
Right.
And then passing that recommendation along and not expecting a thing out of it, I think is another key thing in that area. The favor might come back someday. The networking will come back because the guy you recommended is going to knock it out of the park for the guy, whoever the business is. And I would say that's the two key things. When I speak with kids, I often say their computer skills have to be at the top of any level, that is something that the younger generation has just grown up with. My kids could type when they were like 4, it was great, and so on, and learned every single thing inside out. And then language skills, I think, are another real key thing. If you want to do business in the global world we're in now, it's very helpful. Like English obviously carries it, but to have dual language, and as I work a lot in the sport of baseball here in Boston with the Red Sox, the dual language speakers of Spanish and English really have an advantage.
Yeah. Well, I got to tell you, I mean, that is all three very important pieces of advice that nobody's ever given before in 600
Really?
episodes.
Oh my goodness. Yeah,
so there's something to be said about that learning point of, kind of going back a little bit old school, right? And
very much. I think I was told that when I was starting in 1980.
Yeah.
So, but it resonates, the ability to, make a recommendation and then, you come through for someone, really, is what it comes down to. That builds your reputation as, hey, he's a good guy. You know, whatever he says he's going to do, he's going to do. Is, I think, you know, the subtle thing underneath it, and then also, you know, to admit, hey, I don't know enough about that to take that project on, but I can help you get someone. That goes a long way. And sometimes you can work, you know, on a lot of the television things over the last 4, 5, 6 years. Yeah, you know, had worked at CBS Sports when I was first at the NBA, sort of moonlighting on the weekends, and I learned a lot about broadcasting and what it takes to put on a live television show. But my business partner in the last 3 years, and attending conferences that I never would have attended, and you know, listening to this speakers talk about their expertise, I've learned so much. And you know, that's post 26 years at the NBA. So
Yeah.
you know, every day you can definitely learn something.
Yeah, no doubt about that for sure. Well, hey, brother, how do you want people to reach out to you, and potentially work with you in what you do today?
Yeah, I would say, you know, I lean heavily in the sports industry, but we also help out in the entertainment industry as well. We're happy to see the strikes over and people getting back to work.
Sure.
But they can reach me through Pivottv Media online, and also through terrylyons.com, which is my own little personal website. The thing I have the most fun with is digitalsportsdesk.com, which
Mm,
is a largely Boston focused sports news site. And I've had a lot of fun with that. And I do that, one, to make sure I could do it, to build a website and to keep it up, and learn WordPress and the various Squarespace is another one that I've built upon. But you know, trying to stay ahead a little bit of that tech. Not that it's any grand, you know, I'm not creating anything new, or you know, um, something that Microsoft would want to buy. You know, I'm not going down that road. But
yeah,
I
right.
think to challenge yourself, and you know, it's access as well. You know, I can cover different things in the sports world as a legit sports business writer.
Mhm.
So digitalsportsdesk.com is a lot of fun, but all of that encircles into terrylyons.com.
Yeah, yeah, great, awesome, man. Well, you're like me, brother. You got your fingers in about 10 different things all the time, and hey, that's doing business, man. That's doing great business, to constantly be head on the swivel, and
It's
seeing those opportunities all the time, and capitalizing on them, and so on and so forth. So it's great
one of
to
the funny
go ahead.
one of the funny things that came out of just that is that early this summer, with about 3 weeks lead time to their first event, I got a call from an old NBA connection who was the president of basketball, of slam ball, excuse me. He was the president of business for slam ball. And with 3 weeks notice, we were on the air on ESPN with co-executive producer roles, and putting the whole broadcast together, times some 60 hours. That's up on ESPN Plus now, archived forever. So
Wow,
those kind of things come out of nowhere, and you got to be able to pivot and jump on them.
pivot.
Keyword. Yeah, I love it. I love the connection there.
The word pivot for sure. Well, awesome. Well, hey, kind of closing things up here. I always like to ask this question, and that is because it gets us a little deeper in your brain, right? And that is, if you could have invited anybody here today, any point in time, dead or alive, doesn't matter, who would have you loved to have here with us today?
Yeah, it would definitely be my dad.
Mm, yeah.
He passed away when I was in college, so
Mm, yeah, man. It's
that would be a lot of fun. You know, it because he didn't get to see some of the stuff that I got into, and used to take me to the games. So that'd be a lot of fun.
yeah, awesome. Well, hey, brother, my heart's out to you for that for sure. And you know, those things are always tough to go through in life for sure. And
but it's a happy memory. So,
yeah, absolutely. We keep driving on for them, right?
Yeah, and
that's the key.
I wouldn't mind seeing Wilt Chamberlain play another game. I don't know how he'd like doing a podcast, but some of those type of, or some of the music greats, or I'm sure people go into religion and their various thoughts. But
right.
I'll keep it simple and keep it within the family.
There you go, man. Well, hey, brother, I gotta tell you, awesome conversation. There was a lot to pull and learn from that. The audience there's plenty of nuggets in there to pull from your experience. And, I always like to say we all have the same 168 hours. Thanks for stopping by for 35 here and pouring your wisdom onto our audience. And for me to you, I feel blessed to have been able to have this conversation.
I've enjoyed my time. Thank you very much. I appreciate being a guest, and it was fun to chat. I love the conversational aspect instead of just getting grilled.
Right. All right, brother.
Yeah. Very good. Take care now.
All right. Cheers.
Thanks for listening to War Room Moments with your host, Jason Miller. Please leave your feedback and visit strategicadvisorboard.com to get the latest and greatest business advisement on the planet. Follow us on social media for updates, and we'll see you on the next episode.